Testing the mic just to make sure we're working. Okay, we're good to go. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the SDG Pavilion. This is our event today with Peace Boat US, together with Global Kids, Care About Climate, and many of our partners, including Eco Vibes here from the Caribbean. We're so excited to welcome you all to join us. Just checking the mic with the tech team. I'm not sure if it's reading to the... You can hear okay? Yeah? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, there we go. All right, everybody can hear us all right in the pavilion today. Wonderful. My name is Emily McGlone, and I work as a director of Peace Boat US, based in the United Nations Plaza in New York. And it's an honor to be here with all of you today for our event on youth leadership for the SDGs, Talk Story for Climate Action. We have with us today various leaders who are going to be sharing their stories all around climate, storytelling, and empowerment for SDG 13 around climate action. And the objective of this session is really to explore and showcase storytelling as a powerful capacity building tool in addressing the climate crisis. Through engaging narratives and compelling examples, we'll be sharing and highlighting stories that have profound impacts of the climate change stories that these youth are leading, and also looking at positive actions that we can take around the world. So starting with Peace Boat, I'd like to introduce a little bit about our organization. We are an international NGO sailing the world on board our ship, raising awareness for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, ocean conservation, and climate action, with more than 2,000 people on board the ship. We are sailing to 20 countries every 3 months, sailing through the Northern Hemisphere, visiting countries all the way up into the Baltic region and the Arctic, and once a year sailing down to Patagonia. And this year, we're very excited to also be going to Antarctica, so I'll be also announcing our Youth for the SDG Scholarship Program that will be taking place in January. As we are sailing the world, we have guest speakers who come on board and give lectures and workshops about all kinds of important topics, including ocean conservation, working on mangrove restoration, coral reefs, and here we have one of our guest speakers from Brazil who's highlighting the BBNJ. As Peace Boat is sailing on the high seas, it's very important for us to think about protecting the seas beyond national jurisdiction. So this is one of the topics that we'll be also highlighting during our global voyages. And then on board the ship, as we're sailing, we have activities in all of the ports of call where we're actually engaging with local partners and taking action on the ground. This could be hands-on activities through sports, through cultural activities, tree planting, or beach cleanups. So climate action for us is also very important to engage with those local communities as we're sailing. And on the hull of our ship, we have the SDGs logo painted big and bright so that everywhere we pull into port, we're actually raising awareness for the SDGs. And this is what has encouraged us also to empower young leaders through our Youth for the SDGs Scholarship Program. This is a program for young people ages 18 to 30 years old who are already active in sustainable development and all kinds of activities in their home communities to share their stories on board, engage in workshops, capacity building, and then to also learn from each other during the global voyage. And because we're sailing on the ocean, of course, SDG 14 is very important to us as well. This is a photo when we were actually snorkeling and scuba diving in the Caribbean, looking at coral reef restoration. So learning about life below water and those ecosystems is extremely important as we're working to protect our ocean. And for that, we've also now been engaging in the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. In 2023, Peace Boat launched the scholarship program from our Youth for SDGs, moving towards the UN Ocean Decade, which has now been endorsed by IOC UNESCO as a contribution to the decade itself. And with that, we began our citizen science programs as well, doing water testing in various ports of call, testing the pH level, turbidity, temperature, and oxygen level of the water bodies that we visit. It could be lakes, rivers, or beaches, and taking that data and sharing it with the United Nations Ocean Data Information System, known as ODIS. So this is just a way to promote ocean data and sharing amongst all communities as we are working towards this important ocean decade until 2030. And with our ship, we also recognize that the vessel itself does have an impact on the ocean. So we are also very dedicated to a renewable energy future and working towards the energy transition, where we will create a new ship of the future. And using solar and wind power, we are building Peace Boat's eco-ship, and we hope to sail by the end of the ocean decade. So our goal is to work with all kinds of innovators and creators in green technology and reduce our CO2 and impact on the ocean through Peace Boat's eco-ship, where we continue to tell our story not only through the activities on board, but also using design and technology as a way to share our action for climate. So Peace Boat is a vessel which carries these stories on board, and with our vessel, we have invited many youth leaders to join us during these global voyages and continue to share their stories. So I'd like to pass the microphone now over to Ms. Khadija Stewart from Trinidad and Tobago. She's joined Peace Boat twice now, once as an Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador, representing youth from SIDS, Small Island Developing States, or Big Ocean States, and also as a Youth for SDG Scholar. So Khadija, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Emily. And so my name is Khadija Stewart. I am from Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm so happy to be here today at the SDG Pavilion talking all about youth engagement and climate storytelling. I'm the founder of Eco Vibes Environmental Creatives and EcoSeas Caribbean. And like I mentioned, I'm from the Caribbean, and climate change is very much real. It's happening, every day we're waking up to experiences of flooding, drought-like conditions, sargassum flooding our beaches, coral bleaching. Just this morning, I saw videos from different beaches across Tobago that was experiencing coral bleaching, and it was so sad because it's these large volumes of coral just white, and the governmental agency working on this was just like, there might not be hope for recovery, so this is corals that are going to be lost, so this is something that we need, and it's absolutely devastating. And with that, having all this information and seeing all these different things come to light, I was just like, it's so important to have a population that is informed, that cares, so that they could work towards the solution, especially young people. And that's why I started Eco Vibes, and that is all about climate storytelling, capacity building. We use tools for climate storytelling like podcasts, art, interactive magazines, poetry, spoken word, games. Every time we have a meeting, we're always playing games, using all these different creative tools, as well as capacity building, to make sure that young people, again, are informed, but not just about the issues at hand, are informed about the science, are informed about the policy, and are informed about how they could be engaged and how they themselves could develop what's happening? How they themselves can develop solutions to contribute to the change. And some of the projects that I would like to highlight, I believe the first one is the Caribbean Speak project, and that one is all about, youth storytelling here at COP, so interviewing all the young leaders here from the Caribbean and finding out exactly what's happening in their countries, what is their realities, what are some of the solutions they're working on, what are some of the challenges they're facing, because yes, we are one Caribbean, but each island is very different contextually, historically. We have some people from the Dutch Caribbean, from the French Caribbean that we've been interviewing, and sometimes we kind of operate in silos as a region, so it was so important to make sure that we have a holistic understanding of some of the issues we're facing regionally. So again, we could bring that to the forefront at conferences like this to make sure that when we advocate for our NDCs or when we advocate for things like climate finance, we're making sure that we're leaving no island behind from the region. Some of the other projects we have, I believe the next one is the next slide. So we also have EcoSeas Caribbean, and like I mentioned, we are islands in the Caribbean surrounded by the ocean, so it's so important that we make sure that we learn and protect the one very resource that is near and dear to our hearts as island people. But unfortunately, for a lot of people from the Caribbean as well, the ocean has a dark history. You still have people who don't know how to swim, who are afraid, who aren't connected to it in a big way. So it's so important for us to bring life to the ocean, to the people, and that's one of the things we do with EcoSeas Caribbean, and making sure that everybody understands what's there, why they need to protect it, and we use art, photography, all these different creative storytelling tools to connect people to it. And it's all about building a community of young ocean leaders that are very much passionate, that, we're all understanding what we're going through in this fight for climate hope, climate resilience, but making sure that we could feed off of each other, we could learn from each other, because some people have projects on different islands that might be successful or that might have had failures, that we could learn from and figure out how we could replicate those projects and initiatives so that we could all, again, be part of the solution. And then I think This is not the last one, but one of the key things we've also been working on is the protection of the deep sea. And, we talk about storytelling and we talk about capacity building. And one of the key projects we had was last year we had a deep sea youth symposium where we brought 25 youth from Latin America and the Caribbean to Jamaica to learn about the importance of deep sea science, the governance structure behind deep sea mining, the economics behind it. And it wasn't just about learning all those things. We made sure that some of the youth also got to go in the room, so they had experiential learning, and then they had to have fun, right? So we spent a day snorkeling, diving, doing everything, really connecting to the ocean in a big way. So for us at Eco Vibes and at EcoSeas, it's really all about, like I said, capacity building and storytelling, and just making sure that our people are as informed as possible and using all the creative tools to do that so that we could drive meaningful change. And I think I would end there because I don't want to keep going, and we have so many other amazing speakers. And Brushstrokes for a Blue Planet, again, that was just about using art as an incredible creative tool. So we had exhibitions throughout the Caribbean and Latin America, as well as some sip and paint activities, but just all fun and engaging activities. So yeah, I will stop there and I will pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Khadija. And it's so incredible to see all the creative solutions we have for climate storytelling. There's so many more ways that we can share our stories, right? Through art, through creativity. The podcast, I think, is incredible. So if you're listening also online, you can check out Khadija's podcast on Spotify at Eco Vibes. And Kieran has also been very involved in supporting Eco Vibes, which is really great. So Kieran is joining us for the first time at COP this year, and we're so excited to hear your climate story.
Hi everyone, I'm Kieran Congo from Trinidad and Tobago as well. I'm a renewable energy advocate, a consultant for renewable energy and energy efficiency, as well as a project manager. I'm helping Khadija with Eco Vibes as well. A bit more about Trinidad and Tobago. So Khadija talked about the climate side. Trinidad and Tobago is primarily a fossil fuel-based economy. So we are the leading generators of oil and gas in the Caribbean. So we have very high emissions, carbon emissions. So we need to work on actually reducing this. We have been undertaking several solar projects in Trinidad, but not to a large scale that would directly impact the carbon emission right now. So, move on. All right, so my vision is actually bridging the gap in the energy transition and giving the youth a voice in Trinidad and Tobago. Being from the Caribbean and actually growing up in the actually facing the climate changes myself and seeing it firsthand, I didn't actually have the voice to go out and say what I wanted or show how I felt, give my ideas about what climate change was. So through storytelling, when I got in contact with Khadija, that I was able to actually give a voice and show my work in lowering this carbon emission through my research, which is supplementing electrical power needs for both residential and commercial buildings using solar PV and modeling designs as well. So you could. All right. So my story really started as a graduate in UE St. Augustine in Trinidad and Tobago. I graduated with a BSc in physics and environmental physics and material science. From that, I was persuaded to do my master's in renewable energy by my mentor, Dr. Harak Singh, and even after completion of that, I wasn't given the opportunity to actually expand on my work, or lack of opportunities for youth, which I believe is a global issue, but in the Caribbean, it is very potent. Our youths are hardly given a voice to actually give their ideas and show their work that they're doing. So I just did regular jobs and whatnot, and I wanted to actually contribute and show the work that I was doing. So I left to gain more skills where I could, go out there and show the work that I'm doing. So I did project management. I decided, that was something that would probably be able to impact the others. Then I was finally introduced to Khadija, which by my friend, and from there I was able to attend conferences where I actually got to present on my work and in an international setting, such as the World Recycling Convention and the Our Ocean, where people actually saw the work that I was doing, and I got to explain how the Caribbean experiences these problems and how we could work on reducing that. And from that small jump, that small stage, I am now here at my first COP, which was very informative. Being a youth, being new to this, it's such a great experience. And I've also been working with Khadija with her podcast, the Caribbean Speak Project, and to be able to interact with these youths and be out, like, actually hear their stories and express themselves. It's such an empowering journey. So my advice is to just keep going and take a risk and put your ideas out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiran. And it's been great to have two youth leaders with us this time from the Caribbean, working on all the actions here at COP. And I think teamwork is also very key to climate action, right? So if you're doing storytelling, it's great to build a team around that, whether it's the production aspect, having somebody doing the camera, someone doing the interviews, storytelling together. And I think your work for renewable energy is really in line, especially what Peaceboat's working on, but also with our programs for Blue Planet Alliance, which is another partner of ours working towards 100% renewable energy. So excited to have you join us, Kiran, and thank you for being here at COP with us this year. And next, I would like to pass it over to another partner organization, Global Kids, an incredible nonprofit based in New York City and also in Washington, D.C. Today, we have with us Munab Hasnain, who's 17 years old, also his first time here at COP. So please tell us a little bit about your climate story. How did you get here, and what's your inspiration?
Well, thank you. My name is Munab Hasnain. I am a 17-year-old senior at John Adams High School. I was born in Bangladesh, however, I live in New York. And I'm here as a youth leader with Global Kids. So Global Kids is a nonprofit organization that's made in public schools to help students with post-secondary success. I've become more familiar with the term global climate change when I started high school. I've came to a realization that climate change affects everyone's day-to-day lives, not only directly, but also very indirectly. As the risk index from UN, it says Bangladesh is one of the world's most climate vulnerable countries, ranking 7th globally in 2021. This is a huge thing as people of Bangladesh are being affected. Children of Bangladesh are being affected. They're being hugely affected by global warming, the climate change, and these things. And as the UN environmental program, it says between the year 2000 and 2019, Bangladesh experienced 185 extreme weather droughts and events. These includes cyclones, droughts, extreme flooding, and many more. When I was a younger age, I went to my grandmother's house on Eid, which is a very special holiday, and it's a religious holiday for me. We went to her house, we were having a great night, and we went to bed. In the middle of the night, we wake up to flooding inside the house. Water just came straight in, and we were so worried about everything. I personally experienced scooping water outside of the house, back outside, only for it to come back in. My grandmother's belongings, which includes her clothes, her possessions, all got destroyed. And that is just one of the small stories that a lot of people in Bangladesh are being affected by. As the United Nations Environmental Program of 2024 Global Emissions Gas reports, around 77% of heat trapping gas in the atmosphere can be traced back to the G20 member states, while the 47 least developed countries, which include Bangladesh, creates less than 3% of global emissions. This means that G20 countries like USA, Canada, and some other European countries, they all create so much of this heat trapping gas within our atmosphere. Yet small, least developed countries like Bangladesh and many more are being affected directly by it. This is not okay. This is not something natural. As I was leaving New York, actually, I have experienced very hot temperature in the middle of November. This is not normal. This is not natural. As I just remember a couple years ago, I've had to wear a jacket to school. However, before leaving, I probably didn't even need a hoodie to come outside. Again, this is not natural. This is not normal. Shakwat Ali Mirza from Bangladesh. He is a Bangladeshi climate change director, and he says that just $1 billion annually would allow Bangladeshi people to implement the climate change adaptation needed. This means that from fundings from these G20 countries, who is again causing all of this huge impact towards global warming and climate change, they need to take responsibility for their actions and give money to countries like Bangladesh to implement climate change actions. In fact, it is estimated that within 2050, 1 in every 7 Bangladeshis are going to have to be displaced due to climate change. This is 13.3 million people. This is huge. This means children, families are all going to have to leave their home to migrate somewhere else, all because of climate change. This means the land that they own, all gone. This means the cattle, the livestock that they have, all gone, all because of huge flooding, droughts, and many more. Droughts also mean that the amount of food that is being served to the people, again, having a huge scarcity. So the luxury living of these G20 countries are causing lives of innocent lives of people in less developed countries. SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. The first goal of SDG is no poverty, the second being zero hunger, and the third being healthcare and well-being. None of these three, which are the top three, are being met when people are having to migrate from their own homes out of their places. This means when they move to another place, they have to move. When they move, they have to find jobs because they can't just live off of the land. They have to find jobs. It means that people in other places that they're moving to are going to have tough time settling with them. This will create problems within their own society. As of now, I'm not even sure if I could visit my family in the future, as I don't know, maybe they'll have to face floods. Maybe they'll have to face serious droughts where it's so hot that they cannot come outside. As I actually remember, when I was younger, I used to be able to go outside, go out and play with people, with my family, with my friends. I used to be able to go outside very often. However, last year when I went back, it was very tough for me as it was super hot. It was really tough for anyone to be outside for long enough. I had to be indoors inside the AC, and it was just really tough. and that's just my experience. Countries who are responsible for major pollution needs to step up to their plate and pay their debt, as they are responsible for huge amounts of pollution being in the air, amount of heat trapping gas put it in the air. And I'm here as a youth climate activist, and I wouldn't stop until these countries do. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. And we're really proud to have Global Kids as a partner working with us. Every year we've been collaborating here at COP. And I think working with high school students, not only at COP, but also bringing young leaders, to foreign relations councils, to the United Nations headquarters in New York City, and all kinds of other international engagements is very important to start at that age. So thank you guys so much for being here with us from Global Kids. And we look forward to having you with us next year at COP 30. And with that, I'd like to pass it over now to the Care About Climate team. We have with us first Paula Rincon Munoz. Munoz is a communications volunteer at Care About Climate and a Spanish youth delegate here at COP29. So Paula, share with us a little bit about your story and also why you're here at COP this year.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm really happy to be here speaking at the SDG Pavilion, so thank you so much. As you said, I'm a student at Sciences Po. I'm doing a bachelor's degree in political science, and I'm from Spain, and I am working in the volunteering in the communications team at Care About Climate. So I would like to start with my climate story by explaining a bit of the situation of the youth in my country. I think that one of the things that we hear the most lately is that we are la generación de cristal, which means the crystal generation, meaning that we only complain and everything that happens to us just makes us break. And I would like to just give some examples of why that is not true, and we are proving the power that youth have in my country. So in Spain, as you have probably seen in the news recently, there were devastating floods in the eastern part and southern parts of the country. Right now, the reports say that more than 200 people have died and there are still thousands of people missing. I would just like to highlight that the most important thing about why people in my country are angry is because the government did not give any type of early warning. There were no clarifications as to what was happening. There was no action being taken in the first few days, and by facing that, what people in my country decided to do was to go from every single part of Spain, travel maybe even 5-7 hours to the most affected areas by the floods, which were usually rural areas where people didn't have access to electricity anymore, didn't have access to running water, and go there and help, go there and do whatever they could. They didn't have any professional machinery or any type of equipment to help, but people were literally dragging out furniture from houses, helping the elder who were stuck in their apartments for days alone. And I just think that this is a very big example of how youth can come together to fight the climate crisis, and of how when we face adversity, we are there and we know how to unite. So on the pictures on the left, you can see how most of the people that are there helping are actually young people from all over my country. I just think that we should really try to highlight these types of stories, because we are often seen as people who are careless, who don't have hope anymore. And I know that we can really create communities when we are facing these types of natural disasters. Moreover, I think that it is really important to highlight that in terms of fighting climate change, youth in my country have a very, very high level of disinformation. I don't think that we have the knowledge to understand what happens at places like this, like COP. And I do believe that this plays a big role in terms of the climate action that we see, because I think that a lot of people feel very hopeless. So yeah, I think that it would be super important to bring this knowledge, to try to implement capacity building approaches in order to build communities and to help these people empower themselves and make a change in these type of international spaces. And yeah, that's what I would like to share about my climate storytelling. And yeah, thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Paula. It's great to have Care About Climate here, and maybe we'll have some follow-up questions to ask you a little bit more also about how your experience has been at COP so far, so we can learn more about what you've learned since you've been here. And we have another leader from Care About Climate, Miss Zeina Zubair, who is also part of this team here working on the capacity building and training programs. So please tell us a little bit, Zeina, about your experience and your climate story.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Zeina Zubair. I'm with the COP training team at Care About Climate, and I was born and bred in Sri Lanka, so that's where a lot of my inspiration for storytelling and origin stories for how I got into the realm of climate started. And Sri Lanka is for millennials has been known for indulging in art as a form of expression through war, through communities, through rebellions, through social causes, through political injustices, through tsunamis that happened in 2004. And it varies through dance, through music, through acting, through painting. And it's always been a form of representation for Sri Lankans when using their voices and using their rights was not an option. And the climate crisis is not a concept that is, it's sort of growing within the country, but it's still something that is not fully accepted there. And one way that communities have started to possibly work on expressing this is through community. And this usually happen outside.
If you can switch the mic out, it sounds like it's cutting out just a bit. Thank you.
Thank you. It's usually happened outside the capital through smaller communities, through coastal communities, mangrove communities, forest communities, and around villages. And this is because people go through very similar consequences of climate change. So it could be the lack of food, it could be the lack of resources, it could be the lack of access to education, the lack of educational resources, the lack of access to healthcare, the lack of access to public transport to get to jobs. These are things that communities feel together, and with that comes a sense of belonging and a sense of wanting to do more, and that usually happens through community building. For example, there are coastal communities in the south of Sri Lanka who have created spaces for girls to learn how to surf and to be comfortable in water, because as an island nation, being able to be comfortable around water because we are more risk to flooding is very important, and these are not skills that are openly provided, and they're not openly provided for free almost. And this is not something that the government is always aware of, so it takes villages and communities and effort to try and educate each other. And forms of expression, for example art, for example painting, storytelling, are ways that especially girls have learned how to express themselves, especially when they've been taught to more so restrict themselves, more so been told, well, why are you sharing this with me? What do I do with this information? So they've used art like, even surfing. I would think that sports like surfing, things like coming together and talking about things are forms of expression and forms of art, and are underestimated tools to express what the climate crisis can do to underrepresented and marginalized communities. So the other aspect of the climate crisis is that crisis is affecting people in ways that they do not know. So when health deteriorates, when education cannot be accessed, when resources cannot be accessed, when some areas of the country are more affected than others, but because of the disconnect in technology and information, people don't know what's happening in their own country, in different regions. Art is another way to express that. Art talks beyond our words sometimes, and it collects more information than statistics can. It expresses more than numbers, and I know that Sri Lankans know that. I know that even within communities, even if people's numbers aren't actually on government databases, they know that these forms of expression are being seen by people, and it is replicated around the world through what we wear, through cultural clothing, through food. Where does the food come from? What is the story behind food? Food is also such a crucial SDG, as we know as well. And do Sri Lankans have access to this? Is it making it difficult? How does war affect our access to resources as well? The interconnectedness in the climate crisis and how it's affecting island nations like Sri Lanka is not always seen, but when people do feel the effects of it is when people realize that more people feel that way. And that is how communities start to build, and that is how capacity building is initiated. And that is how it allows people to start expressing and realizing that these problems are bigger than them, but they know that this is not something that they've ever had to face alone. It just took some time to get there. And when it does, it actually brings out a very beautiful network of synergies, and it builds more community and safety to start expressing yourself in ways that may not have always been accepted, but that's how that change starts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zaina. And it's incredible to hear everybody's stories here. We know that we are facing a serious climate crisis, but by sharing these stories, we hope we can shift the climate narrative from one of despair to one of possibility, and demonstrating that while there is no single solution to the climate crisis, there are a multitude of effective strategies that do exist. So with your climate stories, maybe we can just have one word from each of you. We can start with Zaina on the end, and we can pass the mic. What do you think young leaders can do here at COP to help shift the narrative through storytelling for climate action?
I think young leaders need to be more vocal. I think sometimes we may be too concerned about what other people think of us, or the lack of knowledge may be very intimidating, or the fact that our experience is still quite limited. But all these are very fair statements to make. That's just where we are in life right now. So being vocal, regardless of our positions at COP, I think that's very important, because you don't know whose hearts you may touch. You don't know who may be interested in figuring out more about where you're coming from and the knowledge that you carry. And you don't know that until you start communicating what you need to say. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I completely agree with what Zaina just said. I think that another point that could be raised would be that young people need to listen to each other. I've learned so much during these 2 weeks by listening to other people's stories and learning about their personal experiences. We don't often get to be in spaces where there's people from all around the world. And a great way to take advantage of that is to share and to listen and to learn from each other. So yeah, I would really encourage everyone to continue doing that because I have personally learned a lot from it.
Well, I definitely also agree with everything you guys said. I'd love to add that adding emotion with whatever you say definitely adds an extra step of connectiveness with people. It also, I believe the mic is...
That's okay.
Yeah. So I believe that the talking to people in genuine also adds the amount of interest that is being brought to your story, as reading off of a paper is often not enough, and we need to have youth voice speak it out. Thank you.
I believe taking risks, young people need to take a lot more risk. Sometimes we're so caught up with what the experienced people have to say, and we just kind of just go under the radar. So I encourage young people to take more risks and go out and let your voice be heard, and try to make the change that you want to see. So yeah.
what do I add after all these incredible contributions? But if I'm to add something, I would just say I think I would like to encourage young people to remember their why and to be genuine with that why when you go out there into the world. It's very easy to be caught up in all the different moving aspects of climate justice and everything else. And we want to do so much sometimes because we're just so passionate and we're just so caring. But it's very easy to also lose yourself in that fight. So for me, it's so important to remember your why, remember what it is you're working towards, and to just go out there and be genuine in all the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate all of your storytelling and for being here at COP29. And thank you so much to the SDG Pavilion and all of the organizers here today. And we hope that we'll continue to be taking positive action for our climate. We know that the only way is, as Christiana Figueres always says, who is one of the leaders of the Paris Agreement, stubborn optimism for climate action. So continue to work together. And by building networks of youth, I think that also really helps to support each other as we're learning and exchanging ideas and finding creative solutions for the climate. So thank you so much, everyone. Let's give them one more round of applause.